Hi, this is Dee Kaler with USC's Career Development Center. Welcome to Alumni Zoom Trips, the 26th edition of our virtual webcast series with USD alumni experts that provide a glimpse into the life of our alumni in the aftermath of the pandemic. This program is being co-hosted with the Office of Alumni Relations. I'm delighted to be joined this morning by the mother-daughter duo, Cynthia Ajani and Khea Pollard, co-founders of the homegrown coffee shop and community space Café X, by any means necessary. Khea is also a justice program manager at the National Association of Counties, where she educates and assists policymakers in their efforts to improve local justice programs. Previously, Khea was a senior health and human services advisor to Supervisor Greg Cox. She holds a bachelor's in ethnic studies and a master's in education from University of San Diego. Now, looking at Black business stats, we see that Blacks own nearly 10% of all US businesses, and Black women make up nearly 60% of all Black-owned businesses in the nation. Black women stay in the workforce longer, regardless of age, marital status, or presence of children, compared to white women, but yet they earn 21% less than white women. Black women continue to serve as primary breadwinners in their families, yet over a third of them lack paid sick leave. Now, seeing you make a difference in our communities, Khea and Cynthia, against all odds, despite the painful racial opportunity gap, is tremendously empowering and inspiring. And I'm excited to learn from you and the choices that you have made in your career journey, in the hopes that it'll help Black women live out their dreams. What do you see as major challenges facing small business owners today, particularly Black women entrepreneurs?
Oh, hi. Thanks, Dee. That was a really great introduction. I'm gonna make a few points here. Well, first, my name's Khea Pollard. I am half of Café X by any means necessary. We're a cooperative coffee shop in San Diego, as you so eloquently spoke about our community-based vision and our mission to really network and unify the Black community here in San Diego. And I think that there are so many unique challenges to the Black community, both in San Diego and nationally. I mean, you already spoke to some of the data. What we also know is that Black women are the most highly educated population, and yet we still face all of these barriers and obstacles, and there are many more statistics that we can go through. And, you know, we really have to highlight the social determinants of health and the structural racism that exists and kind of underlie those social determinants of health to really get a full picture of why we see what we see, because it's not as though us women are inherently worse or inferior. There is legitimately a lot of covert bias, implicit bias, racism at the root of that. And so Café X is all about self-determination, empowerment, creating opportunities, not only for ourselves, but for the other women, youth, Black people as a whole in our community. And those obstacles are ever present. I think our strategy is about tackling those obstacles, figuring out ways to go around them, through them, as my old chief of staff used to say. So it's plenty. Financial obstacles, there's resource obstacles with just the population. We're only about, I think we're up to 6% now in San Diego County. So we have such a small pool, smaller than, you know, other ethnic racial groups to work from. And so the unity is important, coming together and collaborating is important, and pulling our resources is really important because we oftentimes don't have it.
Anything else that you'd like to add, Cynthia?
Well, yeah, and then, you know, because there's such a small pool and all those factions are not united,
Mhm.
And so there's a whole nother level of work, another whole nother level and plateau of work that needs to be done within that arena.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that is one of the things, the way that Café X is structured, that was,
Mhm.
to engage that,
Mhm.
collaboration.
Mhm. And do you find San Diego to be a collaborative environment for women wanting to start up their own businesses?
It's a great question.
Yeah,
I think
there are pockets.
they are,
Okay,
right?
okay. I want the unfiltered version there.
I would say there are pockets,
Mhm.
Mhm.
but in order to really have a solid collaboration and coalition, we need to have a shared vision. And that is one of the things that is severely lacking, is actually a vision. Without a vision, you can't make a plan. Without a plan, you kind of stay stagnant.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the order of things,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'll say like there's a lot of collaboration. I'll say we're lacking in partnership and
yes.
follow through. It's almost like the depth of the partnerships is missing, and we need to build upon that. I think long
Mhm.
term, short, mid to long term
Yeah.
strategies
Mhm.
Yeah.
to address
And
these
just
things.
understanding the difference between a collaboration and a partnership. They're really
Absolutely.
literally not one and the same.
And in the partial absence of that shared vision and that collaborative climate that you're speaking to, what are some of the resources that are available to Black female entrepreneurs?
Not many.
Mhm.
Not many. We've all heard about the PPP loans, which I think you can speak
Mhm.
more to. But there's also smaller loans. I think I just heard from the International Rescue Committee, IRC. Uh,
Mhm.
they have a specifically smaller loan for women-owned business, and I think it's like a wealth fund. I think it's what it's
Mhm.
called. Um, that exists, and then there are foundation grants. There's
Mhm.
now a grant focused specifically on the Black community, and I think it's nonprofit organizations. I don't know if they're extending that to businesses,
Mhm.
for profits, but that exists now. More conversations about Black entrepreneurship exists now, so that in and of itself, I think you learn and you develop relationships, and there's more dialogue about
Mhm.
it. So it raises the level of urgency and importance, but
Mhm.
materially, not a lot has changed. And I can
Mhm.
pretty
Mhm.
much trace that to the full economic picture as well. We, Black women, we are owning businesses at a very high rate, I think you pointed
Mhm.
out earlier. And yet, how many of us are having thriving businesses making over, $100,000 a year, right? So we have to really kind of peel that back and really examine that. And I think the economics of it, not a lot has changed, generation after generation. We have a bit more now, like I
Mhm.
said, but not a lot, not a
Yeah.
lot.
And I'll tell you, there are a lot of opportunities, just like they told you with jobs. Oh, we've created millions of jobs. Okay, but they're not paying a living wage. We've got loans available, but they're not enough for you to actually engage and get your first capital. These capital
Mhm.
loans, you're looking at $25,000, $50,000. If you're a new business, you don't have any record, right?
Mhm.
Of
Mhm.
business. They're not going to give you a large loan. You have to find other avenues or a combination of, you know,
Sure.
um,
Sure. So it might look like we have this wide spectrum of resources available, but when you look in depth to see what kinds of resources they are, right, there you see a lot of things that are
Mhm.
missing.
yeah.
And
And then the complication of the loans. I mean, the block grants and things have been available to um, nonprofits for years, right? But I've been
Mhm.
to those meetings and they want you to have $25,000, $30,000 worth of capital before you even get into sign up for the application. If I
Sure.
had $30,000, I wouldn't be here in the first place.
That's what I was gonna say, the same thing, when you go and you apply for a loan, and this is the structural racism I spoke about,
Mhm.
it appears in very subtle ways, right? We don't have assets, we don't have property that we can put
Mhm.
up as collateral, we
Mhm.
may or may not have a cosigner with a good credit score, right? So there are ways in which we're disenfranchised automatically out the gate. And then, you know, if you are fortunate enough to be approved, your interest rate's 10% or something ridiculous,
Right.
ridiculously high.
Mhm.
And then, you know, we are chained to this debt for the duration of the
Right.
time we are making our money. So it's just a cyclical kind of
Inequity and injustice.
right and
And
inequity.
and it feeds
Exactly.
into that, if you don't survive the first 2 to 5 years, you're dead.
Yeah.
And, those are
Mhm.
just more barriers and add to that stress.
Mhm. And I would assume too, by the time that, in order to qualify for VC and other investors too, you need to make a certain profit margin, or you need to have hit certain numbers, right? But then, if you're hitting those numbers, you wouldn't really need loans and money anyhow, right?
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
what are some lessons from your career as entrepreneurs that you believe will guide others?
Oh, well, I would say one, you could
Yes, let's
start with
start.
the, with the engagement in the partnerships,
Right.
choosing carefully those you
Mm,
choose to partner with and collaborate with. Because again, that shared vision like goal and mission is going to be extremely important in your success or failure. We've started and stopped with a few of those relationships,
Mhm.
so even engaging in finding partners, because we are a co-op for Cafe X, we have a whole curriculum basically on how that's to be done, you know and have had to kind of massage that and change it over the last couple of years to ensure that we have the right partners in the business that have that like vision. So
mhm.
it's instrument, it's, I guess, critical.
Sure. Choose those partners wisely. Kia, anything else you'd like to add to that?
That is a that's a really good one. I'll also say, um, because I think we live in a time where people are looking for something bigger than themselves. I don't
Mhm.
think you can quite get away with so much anymore. It still happens because that's the nature of the economy of this country. Um, People want to see what they call a triple bottom line. That is
Mm.
so academic and weird to say, because I feel like just create organizations that build a vision for a better future, period. Whether that's environment, whether it's, other social justice issues, whether it's animal rights, there are so many different things that people have an interest in and need attention in the
Mhm.
world. And so it's no longer okay to just sell a product. Um, for the
Mhm.
sake of selling a product, people do it, they still do it. Like I said, I think
Mhm.
it's integral to this particular economy.
Mhm.
Um, but I think as we look toward the future, folks are wanting to feel a part of something. So I think that's really important to have a strong ethos, a strong why, and a vision that you can share with the world that really mobilizes people beyond profit is super key, I feel.
Thank you for sharing that, Kia. I love how you put that. So having that shared vision and that strong passion and strong focus and why, and then as Cynthia mentioned, then building up those partners and collaborative teams that you need to put that why to mobilize that why and put it in motion. So I want to ask you, Kia, what is the best advice your mom has given you?
She's been saying, I thought about this. She's been saying something as of late that is like, you already know what I'm gonna say, don't you?
No, I
Oh,
know.
no, you don't.
I talk a lot.
um,
Oh gosh.
it is don't give too much, don't expect too little, and don't ignore red flags. Like those three pieces of information she's been repeating a lot
Mhm.
lately in this season. And I think that they're super important, really relevant, obviously, not only to our business journey, but personally, when you're looking at this in your relationships, partnerships,
Mhm.
workspace.
Mhm.
It's important to find that balance and that
Mhm.
consciousness, uh,
Mhm.
and and that intuition that guides you. And I think all of those things speak to that. So
I
all
love that.
yeah.
Okay, so kind of avoid self-sacrifice and keep your faith.
I love that. Yeah.
And Cynthia, share something you've learned from Khea.
Oh my goodness. I learn so much from this young person every day. I call her a millennial.
I love
And
it.
they just have a wonderful perspective on you can do. You know, I'm Generation X. And some of our Generation Xers, sometimes we're kind of forced into a mindset of, oh, nothing's ever going to change. But we're seeing this, a growing, rapid change actually, with this generation. So I learned basically stay
Mm.
moving, keep pushing, you know, and intellectually know this, but to see it in action is wonderful. And I've learned tons of things about policy and government, you know, because that was her, you know, that's her periwig.
Wheelhouse. Mhm.
You know, that's her wheelhouse for real. She talks about me all the time because I use all these antiquated terms.
Period.
I'm old, I'm over 50. But yeah, I've learned a lot about, you
Mm.
know, kind of the inner workings and some of the expectations, and really learned about a lot of the disconnects with community because she was a community representative and policy advisor. She got the opportunity to see that so close up, and I got to share in seeing that through her lens. So I think that's been very valuable, and I learned a lot there.
Thanks so much for that. So I definitely see that too, right? That kind of self-actualizing mind of this desire to constantly stretch yourself and that growth mindset, which is beautiful. And then we're definitely going to revisit very shortly Khia's work in the policy realm too, and hear more about you on that. What would your key advice be for graduates interested in starting a small business?
I would say number one, it's okay to start small. I think that we started, well, I know this, we started as doing pop-ups around San Diego and just getting our brand in focus, meeting a lot of people, going to different coffee shops, making those connections, and just seeing what the field is up to locally. And that, all of that stuff was really important to building and structuring the organization in a way that made sense for our communities. So whether you don't have to start off with this $50,000 grant, $100,000 grant, and jump in that way. We also, I'll add, we started with a mobile cart. You know, we didn't start with a huge brick and mortar. And we really eased our way into it now that I think back.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there were times where I just wanted to jump in because, you know, that's me. But it's okay to move slowly and really just find your space in whatever field that you're looking at. That's totally fine. You don't have to have it all figured out at the start. So I would say that just be okay with moving at an even pace, building on a little nugget and growing that. That's okay too.
And kind of just maybe prototype the idea first, right? See if it works and then move on from there. Cynthia?
Yeah, I think that's very valid. The research is important. Your why is important. Okay, I'm starting this business. When we talked about just, you know, wanting to earn revenue, is there anything else? And building that why into your business, right? So that your outcomes at the end of 2 years, 5 years, you can really understand the outcomes. You might be making 100,000, 200, maybe you're $500,000 company at this point, but what is your impact? Yeah. What is your true impact outside of the money? What would you like to see? And incorporating those ideas into your planning will help you be very successful in what you're doing. You know, we don't arrive. It's a continuous journey. You know, there's no arrival anywhere really, I don't think, because people build businesses. Magic Johnson has several hundred businesses at this point, you know, because he wanted to have, you know, impact on the communities. So understanding the why, doing that research and incorporating that passion into your work, and it will keep you motivated to continue.
And you feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
When you understand that, you also know better what you're targets are,
Right.
as you're planning. Is it,
Mhm.
you want to make a certain amount of money,
Mhm.
or I want to have this impact. I want my product to have this impact in people's lives as a whole.
Mhm.
Just really understanding that, and that informs your planning on what
Sure.
to do.
And I would think so too, that that will kind of allow you to make any adjustments and tweaks necessary that then contribute towards building out that why even more to make sure that you're really realizing the impact that you want to realize.
And the
And
evaluation as you go is paramount. Every
100%.
quarter, every 6 months, every however, when things hit you, evaluating and making those minor adjustments as you move is very
Mhm.
important, because sometimes we can get stuck. Oh, it said do it this way, and they want to stay by the book and letter of the law kind of thing, and it's really not working for you. So
Right.
you have to be, willing to
Flexible and agile and be able to. Mhm.
be flexible. Exactly.
So, switching gears just a little bit, and we want to focus on Kia's career in public policy. And I'm curious, what are some of the key skills that one needs to succeed in public policy careers?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. Um, I think folks in this realm have a ton of different kinds of varied skills that make them successful, depending on who they work for, what the priorities are for that particular elected official or office. But I'd say something that I've found to be true for the most impactful um, community representatives and policy advisors, folks who are able to create initiatives and sustain them and figure out how to bring people together to do so, is that you have to have a genuine interest in
Mhm.
people and a genuine curiosity and interest, and um, the ability to see beyond yourself. And it's a bit self-sacrificing, but it's
Mhm.
also stepping into um, what would this community need, want, desire? What is their desired outcome for any particular thing that you're doing? So I'd say high collaboration is always good. If I had to narrow that down into a skill, and being able to reach across different types of communities and kind of bring together a lot of different interests, and find common ground, is really, I think, one of the most important things, aside from the ability to strategize and, digest complex ideas and make them simple. Like that's all really technical, but I think the people stuff is
Mhm.
Soft skills.
oftentimes the most challenging for folks, because they don't really understand how to connect that theory to the communities. And
Mhm.
that I feel like is one of the most important things that you can have. And I'll just say this, it might be folded into the next questions, but
Mhm.
um, oftentimes people want to divorce community from policy, and one is seen as more valuable than the other, policy being the most valuable. Um, but the most successful um, strategy, and I think way of being, just period, is merging the two. When you can merge, this is a community idea, how do we make it policy? That's really what we're supposed to be doing, in my view. And I think people get removed from that because there's a lot of things that happen to people
You
when
get
they get
political.
when they get in positions of influence, right? They feel really important, self-important, and it's nice to
Mhm.
be connected to power on many levels. And they forget, it's
Yeah.
just is
They
a really,
just lose touch with that why,
yeah,
right? That
it's
impact, that community
great.
that they're trying to serve actually.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And this is
And
my
how did
function, right? Like this is why I'm
you,
here.
and how did you land your first policy job? It was with Supervisor Greg Cox. So how did you land that position?
So interesting. I was actually working at USD for the president, Mary Lyons at the time. And I don't know, I wonder if it was, I don't think it was a USD student who was recruiting. I think I had happened upon an internship opportunity with Greg Cox through a friend of a friend who was like, they're looking for interns. And I was like, well, I got this great position with the president here, but maybe I should start looking off campus. And I think I had done that in my junior year. It's like, okay, I really need to expand outside of USD. And so I applied for it as an intern and I got it. And I had worked as an intern for a year. And after that year, they said, okay, we really want to hire you. Specifically, we want to create a position because we want to be more connected to the community and the community that I grew up in, which is Southeast San Diego. And so they brought me on there and I did community representative work. And from there, I got additional responsibility. So it was kind of a gradual build from USD's campus to an internship to, graduated levels of responsibility.
And then how did you transition into the National Association of Counties from there?
Yeah, so I just did that in October of last year. It was time to go. I had spent 6+ years at the county with Supervisor Cox. Loved that experience. One of the best experiences I've had in my young life. Just the ability to have impact and see it so closely is really unique, and all the folks that I got to meet and do actually really meaningful work. Supervisor Cox was actually the president of the National Association of Counties and also vice president. That's how they matriculated through that. So that's how I became aware of it back in 2018. And I had been on a number of their calls and I just decided to look into it. Supervisor Cox was also terming out December. So it was like
perfect timing.
Perfect, right? Everything was sort of aligning in that direction, and they were looking for a justice program manager, which means I have a portfolio of justice projects that I support counties throughout the nation to develop, sustain, and I went for that, and that went well, and
And the rest is kind of history, right? Awesome. And now I'd like to sort of focus us on resources that are available for individuals either interested in growing their own businesses, as well as for professionals wanting to sort of take the public policy route. So I'll start with Cynthia and just sort of focus on what were some resources that you found really helpful in terms, and these could be books, blogs, websites, et cetera, as well, in building out Café X and sort of starting and growing the coffee shop.
Oh dear. Well, well, there are a lot listed that people can go, if they're depending on their nonprofit or for-profit agencies. They have grants.gov and there's USD Rural Business Enterprise grant programs. There are National Association for the Self-Employed, that's a nonprofit trade association. All these places provide, education and resources. We actually didn't go into a lot of those. I mean, we started out, we were looking at bank loans, and our community banks, I guess there's a certain amount of money that's supposed to be put aside for community and loans and so forth. Although you have to really sometimes look in order to even know that. So as far
nowhere to look, right?
Yeah, nowhere to look. So it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a needle in a haystack. There's tons of resources and even money. But again, your capacity to actually qualify is another thing.
It's limited.
Yeah.
Just like the PPP, they say that the applications for that were over as of May 4th. They have till the end and will expire May 31st of this year, right, for PPP loans. but they'll be processing the applications that they have through June. So if you've applied, then look out for that. And hopefully if that's an avenue that you took, then maybe you'll be chosen. But I think it takes all of those things that you mentioned, looking, really searching and finding. I mean, there's some sites, I think it's called, what is it called? Nerd something. I can't remember. But they ask you, you know, how much are you looking to borrow? And then it will give you a list to compare and see. And you know, it's all industries, etc. So it takes a little fishing, do a little data mining on that.
Have you contacted any sort of incubators or like small business administration or small business development centers for support earlier on?
I did.
Absolutely.
Yes, I did. I have my master's in nonprofit leadership and management, which really is amazing because I kind of blend the mission-driven work, the mission and vision with a for-profit kind of institution itself. And I mean, for-profits are kind of easy. I think nonprofits are harder. But a gentle blend of the two was always my goal. So I was using that knowledge and also looking at resources like Development Center. I made, you know, a number of visits there. I've even visited Action, and we were offered a loan. That was the one I was talking about. The interest rate was super high, as I mentioned. So we didn't go that route. I think we fundamentally have a problem with that. And her, of course, like loans. Oh, she was so against loans. And I'm glad we didn't, because had we taken a loan prior to the pandemic, we would be in a lot worse situation than we are now. So it's kind of a blessing that we didn't do that and seek that out. But all of our resources, again, with the technical assistance from those centers, and then people, we have a lot of good trainers and people that we're working with to learn the industry. So that's a major resource we don't think about when it comes to knowledge, acquisition of knowledge, and shared community curriculum is what I like to use now. But that in it of itself is so valuable. I think that's,
well, basically the grant from RISE was one thing that got us kicked
duh.
off.
Why didn't I mention RISE? RISE San Diego. I was in a fellowship 2015, which really was the inspiration to build this business. RISE Fellowship Program. And through there, I was able to get a grant, which is more our speed, as it should be for businesses of color. We should be getting grants. So I got a grant, and that's how I bought all of the initial equipment and supplies and stuff for the coffee shop.
And that was through RISE San Diego.
Right. So shout out to them.
Yeah, and there's also sister cities. We can't, I think, would be remiss in mentioning
sister cities. Okay,
yeah.
These are all wonderful.
Yeah, we're on a panel with them, and they're doing a lot of work and trying to network, and again bringing communities together. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them. We're not currently in their program because we already had things going. We just need to continue with our work, but certainly, you know, people need to look at all their avenues. It might be
absolutely. And then any sort of final thoughts and advice for our graduating class who's stepping into this post-pandemic job market?
Ooh, diversify your business, which for me means have your virtual game intact. Try and plan out for fallout from the pandemic, because we don't know how long we're on the track of getting out of mask and being, you know, able to, you know, meet and stuff again, but we don't know when that's gonna, you know, they're gonna clamp back down on that. So kind of have a mindset of preparing for emergencies. And, you know, our thought process with the cafe is that, you know, with a venue, we want something where, well, we can have some outdoor patio stuff going on, or maybe we'll have to think about incorporating a drive-through, you know, things that will keep us running in any environment, any, catastrophic or otherwise. So
That's
yeah,
great advice.
yeah.
And anything you'd like to add to that, Khea?
I think she covered it. And just remain flexible and really try and pay attention to, I think, your overall health, aside from COVID-19. I'm talking mental, physical, because that really does manifest in your work. um,
Mhm.
and your ability to weather this storm and whatever storms come. And it also, I think, when you're a good steward of your own body, um, that's manifested too in your work and your ability to create, and get insights. And so that's been kind of a focus of mine too, as we build this shop, what is coming through us individually. So that's important in addition to all those other great things.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. And then on a final note, it's been an excruciatingly challenging year with, the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Say Your Name, and so many others. And I want to sort of close out with your thoughts on, what are some resources available out there for us to better educate ourselves on Black Lives Matter.
Talk to Black people. It's just that simple. We are so insulated in our own circles that the BLM movement is great. Don't get me wrong. When we say Black Lives Matter, we're not talking about the movement. We're talking about my Black Life Matters. And in order for you to understand that, you need to know me as a person and not so much looking at an organization, because you have a lot of other things that are connected to that I've noticed in this whole regime, in this era of George Floyd, and these murders and things have been happening for decades and decades. This is not new, right? It's not new. So the more that we can come together and really know each other, I think the better we'll understand Black Lives Matters, not as an institution, but as a reality.
Mm-hmm.
So we have access to different ethnicities of people. Find one. We all talk. you know, it can be very engaging. And that's one of the things that we had to kind of focus on in Café X, but he came there, everyone got to, meld it together. We had the opportunity for that conversation. A lot of that has been snatched away because of COVID and all the, virtual communication. But I think individually, we need to make more effort to talk to people that are different from us, to really understand, because if we don't humanize this thing, it will continue to happen. It's not just an issue that's set aside somewhere else. It happens to everyone else. It's happening to our own families, our own brothers and sisters, your coworkers. So I think it's very important to really connect to people that are different than you are.
Yes, I love that. I don't have much to add, but
Yeah.
I just,
I'm just saying.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, BLM is an organization, it is, and it is a national organization. It's really important. But I don't think they'd argue with exactly what my mom said, is that this is a reality in everyday life. It's an everyday reality of the people around you. And so to better understand that, you have to actually step outside, um, and have those conversations. And you don't have to make it weird. It doesn't have to be weird. Just be genuine, be authentic in your willingness to learn, and support local organizations that are run by Black people. We have a whole expert team,
Yes.
if you want to get involved in that and the work, because we very much have a vision and mission. We have a lot of projects going on, on Black women's resiliency and others, that you can get involved with. And their organizations, like the People's Association of Justice Advocates, that are Black-led, and youth-led organizations. So I think, to my mom's point, if you talk to one Black person, they can certainly connect you with whether it's their own organization or a network
Mhm.
that you want to be involved with,
Mhm.
can, and it starts local. Like these
Mhm.
national movements are great, but they really want you to act in real time locally,
Mhm.
people
And
around
I
that.
love that how Café X really facilitates that. I've had a chance to go through, all the events and activities that you've done since launching it in terms of uniting the communities together through love, right? Through giving and and just honoring and recognizing all the different communities, bringing them together and just speaking that language of universal love.
Mhm.
And thank you for doing that. It was just beautiful.
Thank you. I'm so glad
Thank
that
you.
we
It
can
was
share.
it was absolutely delightful having the two of you joining us this morning. Thank you both so much for all the insights, advice, and for also sharing so vulnerably and authentically. I can't wait to be part of the Café X community. And thanks for gifting our community with Café X.
Aw,
And yeah,
thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.